right, welcome everyone to the September 7th meeting of the Audit and Accountability Committee. I'd like to welcome our interim auditor, Kevin O'Connor, with gratitude and enthusiasm. Would you take the roll?
Certainly.
Or call
Ms.
the roll?
Beckerly,
Present.
Ms. Vera, Mr. Grant,
Present.
Mr. Vajan,
Present.
Ms. Reyes, Mr. Jordan,
Present.
and Mr. Daniel. You do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. The first order of business is to approve the minutes from our last meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Without objection, the minutes are approved. And then our first item is the Office of Internal Audit Report. I'll hand it over to you, Interim Auditor O'Connor.
Thank you. The first thing I wanted to do is go over our OIA Path of Excellence, which we're trying to demonstrate going forward, focusing on collaboration, communication, and building relationships with leadership and management. So I have 4 initial goals, and then the way we'd like to work those is through my meetings with the board, leadership, and management to tweak those goals and to meet and exceed the expectations of all the groups. The first goal there is build confidence in the Board of Education, senior leadership, management, that OIA is a trusted partner that adds value to the district. Some of the tasks we're going to do there is meeting with district personnel, contribute at district meetings, develop trainings, including collaborative conversations, establish focus groups, both at the school level and non-school personnel. Second goal is the frequent interaction with Board of Education, individual Board of Education members, key leaders to communicate and discuss issues regarding governance, risk, and control. The third goal is to enhance effective monitoring of risk and controls in areas that support goals, guardrails, and strategic priorities. Again, establishing risk drivers by department and identifying significant processes by department. And then the final goal is to increase IA staff competencies to maximize the quality services offered by OIA, identify and attend subject matter conferences and trainings. So if we had transportation or food service groups out there that deal with school districts, we can attend their trainings, conferences, and see what emerging areas they have, and that'll help us become very proactive. And then identify emerging issues within school district industries, perform research, trying to find best practices, and focus on proactive assistance. So those are the initial goals. I will report back once we've had all the meetings and what those are finalized to make sure that meets everyone's expectations.
Okay, and if there's some way sort of consistent with the overall student outcomes focused governance, if there can be benchmarks.
Okay.
So we can say, okay, how we're going to know
Yes.
you've
for
accomplished
sure.
the goals, so that we're,
Yeah, they'll definitely be SMART goals too. These are just.
yes, exactly, so that we're, cascading down that mindset of management.
Item number 2 is to establish routine OIA discussions with board members, senior leadership, and management. We don't want to just meet with them one time and then go away. We want constant interaction and collaboration with everybody to make sure we can provide as much assistance as possible. Based on all those discussions, we'll develop OIA actions, and then those will lead into us developing an OIA strategic plan. Initially, that strategic plan is going to be to assist management, to evaluate alignment with goals, guardrails, and strategic priorities, to enhance the quality services OIA will provide to the district, and to maximize the value of internal audit. So that is the OIA Path of Excellence. I'd be glad to take any questions or comments on any of that stuff.
Kevin, have you given thoughts to maybe creating an internal audit roadshow
to folks and help explain what audit does, what they are, help onboard new leaders? What's your thoughts around that?
Oh, for sure, because we have to do that. We have to get out with all new leaders, especially if we have turnover in leadership, because we need them to know that what we can do for the district and what we can do for them as they come in and evaluate processes. Maybe they're coming from a background and had different processes, and we can work with them. But we like to have that a regular, standard, almost onboarding thing for new leaders. So, and senior leadership has been very receptive to our comments about that, so. very
I think the roadshow point is, all of that is important, but also we're on lots of fronts trying to change culture. Yeah, so I think the roadshow being directed toward our existing employees and departments is a really good idea, too. Yeah, I mean, I know we're adding to your plate.
But to echo those sentiments, when Kevin and I spoke about this, we have a weekly 2-hour meeting every Monday morning with our senior leadership team, and I, invited him anytime he wants to come and talk to the leadership team, to talk about plans, to talk about anything in particular, bring anything forward. All he's got to do is give us a heads up, and we'll add him to our agenda. So we've extended that offer as well.
Okay.
And the same for Mr. DeFabo when we met too. So, I mean, it's great collaboration right out of the gate, so. Appreciate that.
Terrific.
The next item on the Office of Internal Audit report is the OIA COOP update. The OIA COOP was developed to maintain the continuity of the vital audit and advisory services to the district. It is to govern the OIA's activities in wake of a crisis event, the crisis mitigation and reconstitution process. So we update the COOP every year, early in the fiscal year, and ensure that we have time to test it before we submit our final document to safety and security. So we have updated it. We did submit it last week to safety and security, and we'll be testing it this month to make sure all our connections work at our alternate locations of work, and we'll do that by October 1st. So I'd be glad to take any questions on the COOP issue. Okay, the next item is the Fraud, Waste, and Abuse Reporting System for fiscal year 2023. And for that, I'll turn it over to Kevin Sanskowski, who will lead us through his infographic.
Yeah, you should have received an infograph in your package of information. It's pretty consistent with what we've presented over the last handful of years. For about the last 4 years now, we've had the same service provider who provides our fraud, waste, and abuse anonymous reporting system. OIA manages that at the direction of the board. Like I said, we're going to be going into our 5th year now with this same provider. Just a couple of things to point out as far as what you have in front of you. Nothing that is super, super crazy. A lot of things are pretty consistent with prior years. You might note that there are a few more items that were referred to employee relations over the current or in the past fiscal year than we've had in the past. That number is 20. One thing to point out about that is in the underlying data of that 20, there's actually 8 of them that are multiple reports about the same issue. And so while that number says 20, it's really 12 unique items that ended up being referred to labor management and employee relations. Really the only other thing to maybe note is the number in the nature of the reports. You'll see that number of 18 for employee misconduct and employee behavior is a little higher than it has been in the past. Again, some of that is tempered a little bit by the multiple reporting about the same issues. So just keep that in mind as you see that number 18. Sounds like maybe it's a lot, but individual issues, it's not 18. As far as trends go, really the trend of anonymous is probably not all that surprising. It's continuously, the percentage of those that are anonymous has been going up over the last 4 years, and that's not probably terribly surprising to anybody. I think it further reiterates, though, the need for the hotline or for the reporting mechanism, because people are willing to, if they have the ability to be anonymous, they are willing to report things and at least have them considered by someone else. Other than that, I don't have any specific things to relay, but I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Kevin. So the question I have is the uptick between 2022 and 2023, but are you going to say, or is it because of this repeated reports about the same incident?
You mean from 26 to 45?
Yes, yes, yeah.
I mean, it's somewhat tempered by the multiple reports, but again, I mean, that is somewhere in the area of 8, and so you're down to 35.
Okay.
Which, 35 is probably really closer to what we typically experience. And also when we were evaluating our provider 4 years ago, one of the statistics they put out there is you could typically expect somewhere, I think it was like 1 report for 250 employees, for every 250 employees. And so our math works out relatively around there somewhere.
Okay.
It's not too far off from that. I think that number is 30, I don't know, 30-something when you do the math. So it's not totally out of bounds.
So that expectation is, it's like another way to triangulate. We're not seeing any aberrations. This is sort of steady. and
As far as
about
the
where you'd
number, yeah, as
expect it.
far as the number
Yeah,
of
do-
reports that we receive annually, yeah, I mean, we're right around, at least what the vendor told us is typical for your organization.
To be expected. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cullen, good to see you.
I do have. a
Mr.
question for Kevin.
Daniels, rather, we'll get you down as attending.
I had a quick question for Kevin. I know this is fraud, waste, and abuse reporting system, so is there anything that's coming out of this process that's requiring a change in, any of your systems or anything?
In OIA systems, no, and I don't think I could speak to anyone else. A lot of what we do is, as you'll see from the disposition, is referrals to employee relations or referrals to management. We don't track the referrals to management. We do track the referrals to employee relations only to completion, and so that we know that it was addressed, and then we can close it out at our end. But items that we refer to management are typically exactly that. They're management type issues, whether it's disputes between folks or things of that nature, things that are really intended for management, and they are the best people that they likely already know the condition exists, and they can approach with their employees and handle that specifically. So I don't know if there's been any change in any
Nothing
outside of
systemic
OIA.
or anything like that, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, the biggest thing is probably to point out is and it should be a concern for for anybody and everybody, are allegations of employee misbehavior and employee misconduct and things of that nature. I mean, those things need to get to employee relations, which they do immediately. If it's an issue of safety, staff safety, student safety, anything of those nature that concern, those immediately go to John Dean and his team for evaluation, and then we will just track it. All of the other things will typically accumulate a little bit, so that we have enough to consider, and then Kevin and I sit down and discuss, what are some dispositions for those, and then you'll see what the dispositions we end up with them typically are, is referrals to management. OIA might include something in a segment review that they have coming up, or we might do just a little bit of preliminary work to get some additional information, is how we will handle those items. And so, the biggest dispositions being those that go to management and those that go to employee relations.
Thank you.
Yeah, it might be good, Kevin, next time we put this together, I think about the categories 2 through 5 in here: waste or abuse, embezzlement, theft, accounting, internal controls, and falsification of records reports, what the disposition of those were. And what I'm thinking about making sure they get to the right level of management. If it's within the same vertical tower, you could just be referring it to the same concern. So getting it, not saying that's happening, but getting it to the right person and understand the disposition would be good. including materiality. Maybe it might have been something that was so small.
Yeah, I guess I think that's another way of saying when I'm trying to decide whether, how do we know whether any of these things are things that we should be alerted to or concerned about or resulting versus just part of having 9,000 employees?
And
But-
I would probably add that this is obviously what is reported through this hotline. There are many other items that we deal with,
Avenues,
obviously.
right.
And so you're seeing a snapshot of what employee relations and labor management is actually dealing with as being represented through this space.
Maybe that's really the question.
Yeah, maybe I'll say it differently. So if there's an allegation of embezzlement or theft, does it only come through here? Or if it came through someplace else, does it get added? So it'd be good at some point, how do we get a holistic view of maybe a handful of these categories? What does it look like across the district?
Again, this is reporting out on this system specifically, that this is one avenue of how an issue would be raised to the organization. And that is tracked separately.
Right. I think, again, we do it differently, everybody does it differently, but we would see what comes through maybe my office, what comes through ethics and compliance, what comes through a hotline, what comes through OAR, what comes through HR, and we see the holistic view of all those in various categories.
Just in terms of how it percolates up,
Right.
not even good, bad, or indifferent in terms of the allegation.
You have they're sorted then by the type of what we choose to put our
Which
categories in.
allegations,
Right,
right.
right.
Or validity, not relative to the validity, just your sources of getting the data, the complaints.
And I would also add, there are times when something comes through here that we're already working on.
Right.
Obviously.
Makes sense,
So
Yeah, that does
there's a
make sense.
redundancy.
All right, well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Appreciate it.
Okay, the next item is just to go over the process with issues and recommendations tracking. I think we all agree that that's a stumbling block that we've had in the past. And in my meetings with Ms. Vanover and Mr. DeFabo, we're committed to whittling that down through collaborative decisions, discussions, and really working with the department chiefs. So what our process is going to be is to send the current list out to each department chief and meet with those chiefs to go over those comments, because the problem is, when we made those comments, could be 2 or 3 years ago, there were different leaders in those chairs. They might not understand what those issues are. So by explaining to the leader, the chief, what the issue is and why it came about, they might have come in and adopted some compensating controls that mitigate that issue altogether, so it can just be removed. But without having those conversations, I don't think we're on the same page. Even sending emails isn't going to
Good.
get us over the hump. We need to meet face to face. So that's what we're committed to do, is get those lists of people and then work with those people to resolve those things, or at least to agree on mitigation strategies that will reduce it from high to maybe a moderate or a low risk, if we can't get rid of it completely.
And then once that process, which presumably will take a while, then we'll create some sort of a document that can be shared with the board, open, what's not open, and the degree of risk. And then we can work that into a calendar, a monitoring calendar, into a regular reporting, maybe quarterly or biannually or something, so that we've systematized the board.
Ideally, what we like to do is report out in October, January, and April.
Okay,
And we still are going to do that, even though our project isn't going to be completed by October. I
Sure.
want everybody to realize the progress that we're making on these
Good.
things. So that's important for you guys to see. So, but as long as we get that train going downhill, we should be able to knock a lot of these out.
and I think that the formality of, and I don't know, I guess I need to think about this for a minute, if it, where it rests, the cadence of reporting to the board, if that's a policy, I guess we'll have to think about, or if that's in the charter for, the next time we visit the charter for the Office of OIA, or somewhere where we're saying, this is what we're going to do, so it's institutionalized.
Okay. And then again, as we'd mentioned, and with Mr. Jordan, when leadership changes, we'll let them get into their departments, but then we're going to get on their calendar to do the same thing. One, sell what internal audit can do for them, and then go over any outstanding follow-up items, because again, they could have come from a place where they know how to handle this, and they can resolve issues by implementing certain strategies. So that's a follow-up process. I'd be glad to hear input from anybody that might have additional comments on that.
Will the external audit recommendations be part of that same process?
It is. when I
Okay,
meet
good.
with
Both internal
those-
and external.
Because those, again, that's from a different source, but it's still important to know if those issues still exist. So we will follow up as part of our follow-up on those also.
I would, so one, yes. I think that we have to get you all in front of our new leaders when they come in. As a new leader 5 years ago, I didn't know that there was an audit from 2008 in HR that
Right.
had many things that were not addressed. I went out and had a peer review by CGCS that really replicated a lot of those things that had previously been brought up. So I think it's integral to get you in front of folks so that they know some of these things that have been hanging out. I would also say that there isn't a world where something should just sit. We need to make active decisions about how we are mitigating risk. And so I think that we are very committed to demonstrating that everything has eyes on it, and that we are addressing those high-risk levels. And like you said, we have some stuff that has probably already been mitigated, and we need to just get some of that stuff off the list. So we're really truing up what our risks are.
Very good.
I think in the spirit of, I am remiss in that I probably should have had everybody introduce themselves. Starting with Kevin, most of us know you, but could we just go around so that our committee members know who some of the new faces are and what brings them here?
Sure. Kevin Sanskowski, I'm one of the executive directors in the Office of Internal Audit.
I'm Mike DeFabo, I'm the Chief of Staff in the Superintendent's Office.
And he is sitting in, the superintendent had intended to be here, but she's called away at a pretty high-level meeting about important things with the community.
Sure. Greg Jordan, I'm a community member, and I'm the Chief Internal Auditor for Nationwide.
I'm Cullen Daniel. I'm a committee member. I'm Chief Financial Officer at Child Development Council of Franklin County.
Tim Grant, I'm a CPA, and I'm a partner in a local firm of Parmter Company.
Kevin O'Connor, interim internal auditor.
Carol Beckerly, board member and chair of this committee.
Ilya Vajan, I'm the community member, the Deputy Chief Information Security Officer at Wendy's Company.
Russ Brown, Chief of Strategy and Performance.
Jenny Vanover, interim treasurer.
Rebecca Rowe, interim data and processes, interim executive director.
And so we're happy to have this much, appreciated, robust conversation and some new faces here and a lot of collaboration going on, and we're very excited about that.
I just wanted to follow up on one thing Mr. DeFabo said is we really want to work in internal audit on developing a workspace to have all our old audits out there. So if a new talent person takes over, they can access that workspace, and you want to go see audit reports, we will just commit to update that as comments are closed. We put that on closed because we don't want them opening an audit saying, oh my gosh, look, they've already been resolved. So, and again, so anything else you think might help a new leader in that workspace, we'd be glad to hear.
I think that so I wrote down making sure internal audit is part of our onboarding process for leaders. I think that even if we have items that have been closed out, even if it's a significant number of items that have been closed out, a new leader should know. And so I think that'll be very helpful to bring that history into those conversations.
I sense you're talking dashboard.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Kevin,
Anybody who watches the regular board meetings knows that I'm a,
one thing that might be helpful, maybe not for October, may not be relevant yet, is to have a walk from, here's our current issue inventory by rating, here's what we, internal audit closed because it was no longer material or whatever, here's maybe got a rating downgrade, so we could see the change between the periods.
And that's what we're going to do in October. We might not have a lot of progress, but that's going to be a living document all the way through our process. So you can see the progress made and,
and celebrate it.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
Terrific.
Any other questions on the issues and recommendation? Righty. And then the final thing under Office of Internal Audit Report will be the dashboard. So on page 3, and I tend to go fast, so slow me down if you have questions. Page 3 is the fiscal year 23 audits and project status as of August 31st. So you'll see under audits, we have 10 in green that were done, 5 in red that were removed from the audit plan, and then we have 1 student behavior that we still are working to close. And under projects, we have 1 WCBE audit report monitoring. The actual audit report done by the independent accounting firm, we've done that piece. But this involves some follow-up from, I think it was the Inspector General, had done a couple years ago. So we're still working on that. And we had 1 succession planning that was removed from the list. And you can see the rest there. Page 4 is the current fiscal year 24 status of audits and projects. So the 3 audits that were in the planning stage, college and career workforce readiness, program evaluation, and IT third-party risk management, which is going to be an outsource. There'll be more to come. Once we have the entrance conference to those, I'd like to bring the objectives to the committee and why we're doing the audit. So everybody understands right up front, this is why we're doing it, and these are objectives we're going to look at during the audit.
Yeah, I like that idea, because I think, and I probably should have identified this as something to think about earlier than now, but just the one line, I think sometimes there's a disconnect between what the Office of Internal Audit is focusing on and what we at the committee think is being focused on. We know the topic, but we don't quite know the approach or the nitty-gritty. So I think clarity up front about that, like what you're actually looking at, so we're all on the same page, is a good thing.
Right, because if we put food service on there, there's a lot of elements we could do an audit on.
And sometimes I think we've had some disconnects between what we thought was being looked at and what was actually being looked at. So I think clarity about that up front would be really helpful.
And when we do our risk assessment next year, when we roll out the annual plan to you, you're going to have a little more specific information as to what's driving that audit, what risk factors and drivers are out there. Just so everybody can wrap their arms around that audit and understand what the expectation should be. And if there are additional things that people are wanting to include in that, we can have those discussions at that time as opposed to waiting until we're getting to release the audit.
And Kevin, just in
yes.
general, when you removed something from the list, what's the reasoning behind just the removal? I know we saw like succession planning was removed.
Yeah, normally it was staffing, but there could also be competing interest as to, we had an Apex audit that we felt was a higher risk than another audit, so we bumped that up and bumped one off our list. So as things come up, we reassess risk to make sure how that fits in. Yep, absolutely. I did want to highlight one thing. You'll see on page 4, the Agile Threat Assessment Team. There were new requirements that came into effect in March of last year, but this is the first full school year for the Threat Assessment Team, and we wanted to make sure that it was being properly set up, they were getting the proper training, that those things were being included in the emergency operations plan of the schools. So the reason we call it agile, because we can jump in quick, help management make sure those things are in place, and jump out, but provide immediate feedback. So we're not looking at 4 months ago what the data was. This is what it is. And when I reached out to Dr. McNally, who's over Whole Child Focus, she was very receptive to having us come in, be part of her team for this, to get all the questions answered. So we feel very comfortable that at the design stage, it's set up properly. We're going to jump back in November and do a little effective test to make sure the people actually on the team got the training and it was included on the emergency operation plan for the school. But we can't do that right now. We have to wait and give them time to get this training in October. So that's why we said in November we'll do that. But I just wanted to reach out to Mr. DeFalvo. Thank you very much, because she was a big help to us. And just with open arms, I mean, when I reached out to her, they had a committee meeting the next day. She invited me right away. So that's fantastic.
And so Agile refers to the type of audit.
Correct, yeah. So it's not a typical one where you go in and do a lot of planning, a lot of scoping. It's just for a specific purpose that we jump in, jump out. We're planning on doing a lot more of that, because I think we can be very helpful to management that quick and immediate feedback. And hopefully we get little wins that'll help everybody out.
Terrific.
So then we go to page 5. There's no additions, deletions, or adjustments to the audit plan. Page 7 is the outstanding recommendations currently where they stand. So when we send these reports out, like academic will get theirs, to walk through it, they have 8 that are implemented, not verified, and all 8 are high. That's what in parentheses means. Those are the number in high. And then they, in progress, they have 3 that are open, and they have none of those are high. So when they get their report, they can reconcile with this list. And then I have a column cleared since last meeting, so you can see the progress, and I'll probably make additional columns so you can see what we cleared since last meeting and what we've total cleared. So then on page 8, this is the external audits. I do have 2 corrections I want to apologize for. The fiscal year 21 auditor of state down there, they had 2 original recommendations. OIA did not validate those, but because the auditor of state did not have any comments during their last audit, we're going to take that one off. So, because that's a step that they would do. So if they had a problem, they would have reissued that. And then the attack and penetration testing, there's 13 items. All 13 of those are ready for review. So they should move over from the open item to the ready for OIA review column. So we'll work on validating those. And then you have on page 10, it's just our professional development activities. Hopefully those will start including subject matter areas also, so you can see that we are working with them. And then page 11 is the OIA Path of Excellence, what we went over. Advisory consulting services, which you see threat assessment team process, we did that. Outreach Medicaid, just a couple things on Medicaid. We're talking with Catherine Mosier about, and Dr. Klein, about the Medicaid piece and the unwinding and the free care and the unreimbursed expenditures. Just wanted to give you an update. Due to unwinding, and this is where during the pandemic, families did not have to sign up for Medicaid. The federal agents or federal government just gave everybody eligibility for that. Now, unwinding means new families or families have to sign up for that to continue those benefits. So almost 6 months into this unwinding process, over 5 million have been unenrolled from Medicaid nationwide. And 74% of that has been for procedural reasons. So somebody didn't just sign up. It wasn't that they lost their eligibility, they just didn't sign up again. So
74%.
74% of the 5 million were for that reason. So just give you a heads up that that's out there. Regarding free care, Michigan program implemented free care in 2019, and I wanted to read this sentence. it has not only achieved one of its overall goals in increasing students' access to behavioral health services, it has also helped bring in additional funds to the schools. And that was from the National Academy for State Health Policy. So right now, we have an opportunity because Ohio Department of Education is really reaching out to Dr. Floyd of our district to partner with other states. She's on a panel with the representatives from Michigan to go over Medicaid and the effects of trying to get free care here in the state of Ohio. So Ohio Department of Education's ask of many school districts in Ohio was start backing them to get momentum to get the legislature to want to change that and open up free care in the state of Ohio. So they seem to be receptive, but just to give you a heads up that that's where that's going.
Okay, now, I want to ask you what free care is, but I don't know that I need to know. But is this on your radar in terms of government affairs?
So Kevin and I had talked about this a little bit.
Okay. So, I mean, because that's where we have
Definitely
to make sure
on-
that gets.
On the radar, yes.
It could be a faint ping, but I just want to make sure that, because we're in the process of standing up a much more
affairs.
robust government affairs organization, so, and this is where we have to be advocating.
Absolutely.
All right.
And we have a meeting tomorrow with Catherine Mosier, Dr. Klein, to discuss this.
Okay.
type of stuff.
And how did, all right, I guess I don't really need
This came from,
to know. No, how'd free care work? Well, free care sounds like it's not going to get us money.
well, the difference with free care is right now Medicaid services, you have to have an IEP to get
Oh,
reimbursed.
got it, got
Free
it.
care opens up those services to all.
So if we're providing therapy to every student who presents to us and needs it, that they don't need to have the IEP first in order to qualify for Medicaid. Okay.
So that's why the
Now I
additional
understand.
dollars.
Actually, that was easier than I thought. Terrific.
And then the last thing on there is just the auditor state levy guidance. They had issued levy guidance on August 21st on what employees, board members, et cetera, can say about a levy. So I attended training and forwarded that information to Mr. Barnes, and he let me know that that had already been disseminated through communications, so fantastic.
I would also add that the entire cabinet team received training on the auditor state guidance by myself and James Barnes, and following several trainings that we've been a part of as OASBA and some other folks. So we are all leaning in on that guidance.
Such as it is.
Yes.
All righty.
All right, and then page 13 is our table of organization. Currently, the blue indicates 3 vacancies, and the yellow indicates somebody that's out on long-term leave right now. So just to sum this up, we have 5 current auditors completing OIA work. We have 4 positions that are open or on extended leave, so that's 44% of the OIA workforce approved by the board is not in place. That in combination with the OIA budget cut of 30%, it just creates a severe restriction on some of the work that can be accomplished by OIA. So I just want to be realistic with everybody on the expectations of plowing through a lot of this stuff. So we're looking to fill the 2 positions approved by the board as part of the 5-year staffing plan requested by Treasurer Behorick a couple years ago. And those were slotted for fiscal year 22 and 24. And then we're exploring an option of possibly using contract auditors to fill temporary gaps because we have these interim positions, like myself. And again, I just don't know how long, but maybe it's a month to month that we can get a contract auditor to come in and do some work for us. So just wanted to give everybody a heads up on that.
And I think to add to your plate, I don't know if this is still how you're organized, or you're giving some thought to how to be organized.
In October, at October's A&A, I thought I would bring a staffing model.
Okay.
Like a reorganization.
Right.
and just get people's input on that, so.
Kevin, couple questions, if I may.
Yeah.
The vacancy that was to be filled in fiscal '22 was what, like 18 months ago, give or take. Is there a challenge on filling that?
What we initially did is we had that vacancy along with the Senior Information Systems Audit Manager vacancy. So once we hired, and Satya filled that spot, so we wanted to get him on board and trained. So we waited on that the fiscal year '22 until early last year, I think in '23. So that went through the system, it just got hung up in talent, it just did not get approved, so it just sat out there, so I don't.
So it's on hold?
It's not now.
Oh, not now? Okay, good.
Fantastic.
I think there were several positions put on hold during the transition of
Across the district, yeah.
superintendent.
That makes sense.
Right.
And then
I think we were responsible for that.
I thought we saw the 201 number earlier. When we approved last year's budget. Was there a reason why was this the expense reductions across the district, or was this something that you folks were looking to try to drive more efficiencies with?
Yeah, because we were in flux, we didn't really have any input on that budget. I know what you guys approved, and it was it was about
201, 202, something like that, yeah.
But then when it came back to us, it was 141, so. But again, because we did not have a leader at that time, that's just what happened.
Every non-personnel budget in central office was cut 30% based on the previous treasurer's guidance.
Good, that makes sense.
To get us solid till 27, I believe. What, to make the 5-year forecast fit.
Okay. So we could probably expect something around those lines next year, give or take?
I would expect, although there's something happening in November, so I couldn't tell you the answer to that.
Right.
But yes, I would
That's
expect
fair.
that is it.
That's fair, thank you.
Alrighty, and that concludes my dashboard report. So were there any other questions on the dashboard? Alrighty, thank you. That's all we had for the Office of Internal Audit report.
All right, and now, we're heading into executive session?
Yes.
Okay. And that's next door?
Yes.
Okay,
I can read this.
sure.
Pursuant to the Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G6, it is recommended that the Audit and Accountability Committee of the Board of Education move into executive session to discuss details relative to the security arrangements and emergency response protocols for the school district, since disclosure of the matters discussed could reasonably be expected to jeopardize the security of the school district.
Okay,
Need a motion?
yes, I need a motion.
So moved?
Second.
Seeing no objection, we will move to executive session.